you all. Welcome to CEC lecture. The topic of analysis for the lecture is Immanuel Kant, Perpetual Peace. In this lecture, we shall analyze the important ideas highlighted in the work Perpetual Peace by the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. The lecture shall also discuss other important works of Immanuel Kant, read through the translated versions that we have got for the work Perpetual Peace, and also look at the relevance of the ideas in contemporary times. Moving forward, who was Immanuel Kant? Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher. And not only that, his work is very significant. That is, he was an important Enlightenment thinker. Born in Königsberg, Kant's comprehensive and very systematic works, that is, when we look at epistemology, when we look at metaphysics, ethics, Western political philosophy, Kant's work are indeed very significant. That's why we say Kant's works are very comprehensive as well as systematic. Immanuel Kant was born in Königsberg, East Prussia. He was professor of logic and metaphysics also at the University of Königsberg. It is very important that as we are discussing the Perpetual Peace, let us reflect on some of the important works and ideas of Immanuel Kant. The Critique of Pure Reason, 1781. This work was an examination of the limits and scope of human knowledge. The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, 1785. The Critique of Practical Reason, 1788. The Idea for a Universal History from a Cosmopolitan Perspective, 1784. An Answer to the Question, What is Enlightenment? 1784. Conjectural Beginning of Human History, 1786. So what we see here is in all this important work, the Critique of Pure Reason, the Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, the Critique of Practical Reasons, all of them present some very important ideas, and these ideas somewhere are related too. Reflecting at this important works, Kant held that if there is any fundamental law of morality, what is that? For Kant, it is a categorical imperative. And what is the implication of categorical imperative? The implication of it is that the moral reasons override other sorts of reasons. Now we need to understand that when we will be discussing perpetual peace, the very idea of moral reasons overriding other sorts of reasons become very significant with respect to the idea of world peace. Further, categorical imperative, that is, how do we define it? How do we understand it? It can be understood as universal ethical principle stating that one should always respect the humanity in others. That is, one should only act in accordance with rules that we can hold for everyone. So therefore, an important tenet in Kant's viewpoint is that of transcendental idealism. When we look at transcendental idealism, very important term, that is distinction between what we can experience and what we cannot. And therefore, as we discuss, and when anyone points out about the issue of transcendental idealism, Kant is very important to be understood here. That is the know-how of the natural, the observable world possible. But we cannot, however, have answers to many of the deepest questions of metaphysics. Kant made very important contributions to nearly all areas of philosophy. And most important, flowing gradually from categorical imperative, transcendental idealism, one gets a sense of cosmopolitanism in his ideas. And this cosmopolitanism is very important when we look at issues of globalization in contemporary international relations. When we look at the issues of world peace, cosmopolitanism of Kant's perspective is of timeless significance. According to Kant, war was a result of an imbalance. War reflected disequilibrium in international relations. Wars are never desirable. Wars, as we understand it from the point of view of Kant, they lead to new conditions in international relations. And sometimes these new conditions are more balanced than the previous ones. When they are more balanced, there is less chance of new war occurring. Moving towards perpetual peace, when we read through Kant, therefore, one has to understand it as a process in which all states of the world slowly work towards a condition of balance, a condition of equilibrium. Now, it is very important to understand that when we talk about perpetual peace, the idea of perpetual peace was first used in the 18th century when Charles Irénée Castel de Saint-Pierre published his essay Project for Perpetual Peace. It is very important to understand the context that time, because that essay that time was related to the Treaty of Utrecht. The Peace of Utrecht was a series of peace treaties signed by the belligerents in the War of the Spanish Succession in the Dutch city of Utrecht. And the treaties of Utrecht are a series of treaties between France and the other European powers. But however, the term perpetual peace became very popular when the German philosopher Immanuel Kant published his 1795 essay Perpetual Peace, a Philosophical Sketch. What is the significance? That is, when we look at some of the reflections on this work, there has been reflection that is a major outcome associated with the oft-noted Kantian revival has been that the democratic peace thesis, that law, that democracies do not fight each other. Most important reading from the remarks, the research, the perspective from David Held, Andrew Linklater, very important international relations theories, that is, the cosmopolitan democracy which finds inspiration in Kant's writings, they have definitely helped to spawn comprehensive models of a future world of peace, a future world of democracy, equality and justice. Further, Andrew Hurrell, another important theorist, and we must understand, he assesses Kant's paradigm in international relations. He states that there is no single Kantian solution to international problems. Kant's writings on the subject are characterized by tentative and exploratory approach. I repeat, tentative and a very exploratory approach that is keenly aware that all solutions involve trade-off. All solutions imply certain costs. So therefore, when one goes through the ideas of perpetual peace, the essay categorically says that the philosopher has faith that practical politics and morality will harmonize. Most important, there is an address, there is an acknowledgement that humans are naturally aggressive. Humans are self-centered. But there is faith, as we just pointed out, faith that practical politics and morality will also synthesize, will also harmonize, that is, reason can save. Reason can be a savior. It can elevate us out of the brutal state into a moral state. Kant believes in human progress. And this is where the march of progress is linked to world peace as destiny. Kant's ideas are important for the formation of League of Nations, for United Nations, and also when we look at various models of supranational governance, various experiments of supranational governments, example, European Union. So what is peace for Kant? Peace is not just about absence of war. Peace requires rule of just laws within the state, between states, and between states and foreigners at global level. Important issues that one must understand when we read through Kant: why individuals should join a state, what the main characteristics of a just state are, whether and how the state's internal constitution bears its external behavior towards other states, what forms the rule of law should take at the transnational level. So let us now read through the text, and we would like to point out for our learners and our viewers that we are referring to the translated versions of the essay Perpetual Peace. First, no peace settlement which secretly reserves issues for future war shall be considered valid. Reading further, for such a treaty would represent a mere ceasefire, a postponement of hostilities, and not peace. For peace signifies the end to all hostilities, and even merely adding the adjective perpetual to the term renders it as a suspicious looking pleonasm. Moving further and quoting further from the translated version of Perpetual Peace. But if, on the basis of enlightened concepts of political prudence, the true honor of the state is thought to lie in the continual expansion of its power by any means whatsoever, then such a judgment will surely seem academic and pedantic. Quoting further, reading further from the text, the translated version, no independently existing state, irrespective of whether it is large or small, shall be able to be acquired by another state through inheritance, exchange, purchase, or gift. For a state is not possession, that is the word that is patrimonium, as it, for instance, the territory on which it exists. It is rather a society of human beings, whom no one but the state itself may command or dispose of. To annex a state which, like a tree trunk, has its own roots, and thus to treat it as a graft onto another state, is to annul its existence as a moral person, and to treat this moral person as a mere thing. Doing so hence contradicts the idea of the original contract, an idea without which no right over a people is conceivable. Moving further, quoting from the translated version, standing armies, that is, milis perpetuus, shall gradually be abolished entirely, for they continually threaten our states with war by their willingness to appear equipped for it all times. They prompt other states to outclass each other in the number of those armed for battle, a number that knows no limits. Further, the state shall not contract debts in connection with its foreign affairs. Further, no state shall forcibly interfere in the constitution and government of another state. Further, it can rather serve as a warning by means of the example of the great ills that a people has brought upon itself through its lawlessness, and, in general, a bad example which one free person sets for another. Quoting further from the translated version, no state shall allow itself such hostilities in wartime as would make mutual trust in a future period of peace impossible. Such acts would include employment of assassins, poisoners, breach of surrender, incitement of treason within the enemy state, etc. The next part, of the section of the essay, that is some definite articles for perpetual peace amongst the state. I repeat, the next section focused on some definite articles for perpetual peace among states. Let's read through that. That is, the natural state of men is not peaceful coexistence but war, but not always open hostilities, but at least an unceasing threat of war. So, a state in which there is no danger of hostilities needs to be established, and this will have to involve more than merely the absence of hostilities. Now, it is very important that as we read through the ideas of Kant, the perspectives presented by perpetual peace, one sees that there is a very important balance, and the balance here is rationality, recognizing the nature of human beings. There is a very important perspective that there is a need to look at humanity, the connect between one human being and the other human being in a generalized format, and above all, the faith in idealism, the faith in morality to lead the way towards peace. So, how ideas are presenting some important dynamics of not only rationality but a balance between particular to the general and above all morality to the peace. Quoting further from the work, the words of Immanuel Kant, real security against outbreaks of war is something that has to be pledged to each person by his neighbor. Indeed, very significant ideas, for example, when we talk about international cooperative arrangements, when we look at international institutionalism, the very idea of pledging support to thy neighbor becomes very significant to factor in any kind of diplomatic enterprise success. Constitutions are of different types which differ in what range of persons fall under their laws. That is also termed as, this is often termed as the heart of the idea of perpetual peace. Let's read through that. Constitutions that embody the civil law governing interrelations amongst men in a nation state. Constitutions that embodies international law governing the interrelationships amongst the nation states of the world. Further, constitution that embodies the law of world citizenship governing the relations amongst men and nation states considered as citizens of a universal state of mankind. So therefore, it is also pointed out that the civil constitution of every state is to be republican, Another important aspect of the essay, the law of nations is to be founded on a federation of free states. Therefore, as Immanuel Kant says, the history of nature begins with good, for it is God's work. The history of freedom begins with badness, for it is man's world. Further important, very beautiful idea from Immanuel Kant towards the very idea of cosmopolitanism, that is, a league of a special sort must be established. That we can call a league of peace, which will be distinguished from a treaty of peace, because very important, the idea of league and peace and treaty, that is the looking at the substantive and the procedural aspect, that is because the latter seeks merely to stop one war, while the former seeks to end all wars forever. The power in morality to guide us towards peace. So beautifully pointed out and so beautifully opinionated by Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant in Perpetual Peace also points out that, and we quote from that, without man and his potential for moral progress, the whole reality would be mere wilderness, a thing in vain, and have no final purpose. Further, quoting from Immanuel Kant's very important perspective in Perpetual Peace, standing armies constantly threaten other nations with war by giving the appearance that they are prepared for it, which goads nations into competing with one another in the number of men under arms, and this practice knows no bounds. And since the cost related to maintaining peace will in this way finally become greater than those of a short war, standing armies are causes of war, of aggression, that are intended to end burdensome expenditures. Moreover, paying men to kill or be killed appears to use them as mere machines and tools in hands of one another, the nation, in which is inconsistent with the rights of humanity. So therefore, what we see here is that as we revise through the perspectives of Immanuel Kant, the ideas of Immanuel Kant in his very significant work, Perpetual Peace, Kant elaborates the cosmopolitan perspective, the cosmopolitan ideas first, that is in the idea for a universal history in his towards perpetual peace. Most important, as we go read through Kant, one gets the sense that he has presented a peace program. He has suggested a peace program to be implemented by governments. The preliminary articles of the essay of the work describe these steps that should be taken with respect to issue of world peace. Most important, no secret treaty of peace shall be held valid in which there is a tacitly reserved matter for a future war. No independent states, large or small, shall come under the dominion of another state by inheritance, exchange, purchase or donation. Another important aspect, standing army shall in time be totally abolished, and that national debts shall not be contracted with a view to the external friction of states. Further, no state shall by force interfere with the constitution or government of another state, and that no state shall during war permit such acts of hostility which would make the mutual confidence in the subsequent peace impossible, such as like employment of assassins, poisoners, amongst others. 3 definitive articles would provide not only mere a cessation of hostilities, but also lead a foundation on which to build a peace. And what are they? The civil constitution of each state shall be republican. The law of nations shall be founded on a federation of free states. And last, the rights of men as citizens of the world shall be limited to the conditions of universal hospitality. So therefore, it is very important to understand that ideas of Immanuel Kant, the perspectives from the work, the Perpetual Peace, they are very significant. They are a significant proposal, a plan, a framework on the basis of which world peace can be achieved and of course maintained indefinitely. It is very important to understand that Kantian perspectives not only lay the foundation of a cosmopolitan framework of world peace and democracy, but at the same time, they also point out the essence of morals, the faith in morality, the faith in reason to lead towards peace and betterment of all. Some important additional references that you must refer to: Onara O'Neill's work, Constructions of Reason, Explorations of Kant's Practical Philosophy from Cambridge University Press; Henry Allison's work, Kant's Transcendental Idealism, An Interpretation and Defense from Yale University Press; and important work, Practical Philosophy, edited by Mary Gregorger. You must refer to these works to understand and delve deeper into the ideas of Immanuel Kant. Dear learners, we hope that the lecture Immanuel Kant, Perpetual Peace presented to you significant inputs and insights. We look forward to positive, encouraging feedback from you all. Thank you very much.